So now, we're very happy to entertain questions from the audience. We have a couple of mics. Abby's over there. And of course, everybody's going to ask questions going to be dead center, right? So where's our first question? Okay, if you can try to move over to the side, that'll be a big help. No, you're not going to do that. Here we go. Here's the first question. Okay.
It's two questions, really. One is simple. How many gallons do a barrel of oil?
42.
The second is, what type of chemicals are they using as dispersants, and what are the toxic effects of them?
I don't know exactly, but dispersants are like dishwashing detergent. They break the oil up and make it dissolve. And
they're using a material which was also used in the Exxon Valdez, the same material called Corexit.
Well, that's just a brand name.
It's a brand name, but what it is a mixture of dispersants. It's basically like a detergent.
Yeah. It's a mixture of surfactants, things that we use in soaps. They're included in many things that we eat, these particular ones. By themselves, they are not terribly toxic. However, most of the studies that have been done with them found that when mixed with oil, they make the oil more toxic. So you're trading that off against the oil hitting the shore.
Jeff, I want to make one comment to your previous question. And Carl went through the whole sequence of failures. The one he didn't mention was the well also had a blowout preventer. And even if all of that stuff,
how could I have forgotten?
Even if all that stuff happened, the blowout preventer, had it worked, would have probably prevented the blowout. Nonetheless, it failed. The other thing I should say, and it's how clear it was that the oil companies were unprepared, is that the emergency response plans for the Gulf of Mexico talked about walruses because they were taken straight from Alaska.
Let me just add one point.
Well, how many walruses died? It worked.
Let me add one point. As I went through all the material, and after Howie Schneider came to me and asked me to sub for him, it was clear, and Carl referred to this, that there were many tests that had been taken on the rig, and they didn't get the results they were supposed to get. There were signs that there were problems here, including the emergency procedure had not worked properly, and they ignored it.
Anyone else have a question or comment?
I can shout. It's okay. I can shout.
Oh.
I have one right here.
Yeah, good.
To answer your question, sir, the common chemical used is called Corexit 9500. I'm not exactly sure what the toxicity of that is, but my question is, when the oil is broken down, how does that like neutralize the oil, or just break it down and disperse it, and it's still toxic?
It does facilitate the further breakdown by microbes. If you break it down with dispersants, you increase the surface area of the oil because it's in lots of very tiny droplets. So it's easier for the microbes to attack it, but that alone doesn't eliminate the toxicity.
Actually, that's not necessarily widely held by everyone. But what eventually happens, the microbes do completely chomp down the oil, and it ends up being carbon dioxide, given enough time.
Okay, we'll have a question here.
I actually have a couple questions. First of all, you were saying that it affects sea turtles. Like, obviously the oil still affected sea turtles, but you were saying, well, the two of you were saying it affects sea turtles, but they'll get better, or it's just short-term effects. But a lot of specific sea turtles are endangered, so wouldn't short-term effects really be long-term for them?
Yeah, I think the sea turtles probably were the worst affected wildlife in the Gulf. They largely lost a whole breeding season. The most endangered sea turtle in the world nests only in the Gulf. So they probably got it the worst. Nonetheless, sea turtles live a long time and they take a long time to mature. So there were a lot of juvenile sea turtles that were up the coast, not in the Gulf. who were not affected by the spill. There were turtles in other parts of the Gulf that were not killed. So I just meant to say that essentially, even though the turtles got it worst, they didn't get wiped out even in the Gulf. And there were others outside the Gulf that will be headed there to breed in the future. So the early fears that this would wipe out entire species and the kinds of things that we were reading and that we were afraid of, because no one knew when in the world the oil would get turned off. If it would be, first they were saying, but maybe as late as Tuesday. And we were saying, oh my God, a week? This is going to go on for a week? And then it was months. And then it was the relief wells not until September. And then nobody believed anything. So people were worried that maybe they would never shut this thing off and it would go on for, who knows, a year or years. So there was a lot of anxiety over that. But in the end, none of the animals that were affected so disastrously that all the individuals in the Gulf got wiped out, or that the entire population, is inviable.
But for individual turtles that were oiled, it was terrible for them. Well, yeah. But what Carl's saying is there were turtles elsewhere, turtles at different ages,
but
will be okay.
Won't it be difficult to tell if, how they're doing until the next breeding season and until we can tell? Because if they take such a long time to mature and juveniles have such a low survival rate.
Yeah, it'll be hard to tell for a long time. The effects of, the long-term effects of this stuff will take a long time to figure out.
I think that goes first.
You spoke previously about the Oil Pollution Act of 1990 and how it was sort of a precursor because it only encompassed the spill of oil, not necessarily an eruption from a well. What kind of legislation do you think is necessary to prevent this? Because as many of you pointed out, this is not an industry that's going away. And next week is going to be the anniversary of the Clean Water Act. So how does the BP oil spill affect, do you think, future policy that the government should take environmentally?
Well, in the 1969, was it, the Santa Barbara oil spill, that had a huge effect on federal policy. It helped to really usher in the whole environmental movement. It really sped that up. It created a lot of national awareness. People were shocked, and it was a real inflection point in how we thought of the importance of safeguarding the environment.